How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another Pioneer tier list video. Before we dive in, if you're enjoying the content, be sure to like and subscribe. It's free and it helps the channel out a bunch. First up, the S tier. Nothing's been dominating enough to have its own spot up here in the S tier, so once again, it sits empty. Next up, the D tier. Starting off, we have Heroic, which is new to the tier list, though a classic deck. It put up 4 top 16s this past weekend, and is starting to show as one of the stronger aggro decks in the format once again. Rakdos midrange drops down from C tier last week. It put up decent showings with 3 top 16s, but it seems like a lot of the players are moving back towards vampires, causing it to lose a little bit more of its play rate. Insidious Roots, similarly, is sitting with 3 top 16s this week, and while I do want it to continue to rise because the power level seems to be there, the overall play rate isn't supporting it, and so it moves down from C tier to D tier. If it starts to pick up more play, it'll quickly climb back up, as like I said, the power level and the conversions are doing very well. Similarly, Humans with 3 top 16s continues to sit in the D tier. It hasn't really fluctuated much in the last few weeks. It still has some good matchups at the top, especially with Devotion coming back into the picture, but its matchups into Amalia and some of the black mid-range decks are keeping it down in D tier, so we'll have to see how that progresses moving forward. Lastly, we have Blue-Black Control with 2 top 16s this week. While the deck continues to have a high power level with Valky and Jace, as well as the Days Undoing package, it still struggles into some of the top decks in the format, and though it is one of the 2 options you have of control decks in the format, control as a whole isn't doing so hot in a metagame this diverse with so many different things to target. Next up, we have the C tier. We start with Mono Red, which had 9 top 16s this week, putting it as the best aggro deck of the format for this week, and even though it didn't have as much play as Gruul aggro, it's still performing very well, especially into some of the top decks. Blue-White Control continues to rise this week with 7 top 16s, moving from D tier to C tier, and while it's the best control deck in the format overall, we're still seeing control struggle compared to some of the other top decks. Spirits moves up as well from D tier to C tier this week with an amalgamation of Mono Blue, Blue-White, and Bant. The deck continues to do well overall, and while it does struggle into some of the top decks, the addition of Devotion back to the top of the metagame gives it a natural deck it can attack. Lotus Field also moves up from D to C tier for similar reasons, being able to attack many of the newer top decks and putting some of the slower decks that are more mid-rangey like Discard on its back foot overall. Finally, we have Ensol, which moves up from D tier to C tier as well with 6 top 16s. The deck is able to put a lot of pressure on decks that can't close quickly, and the addition of having blue in your aggro deck does very well into decks like Devotion, where you can apply a clock and then counter their key spells. Starting off B tier, we have Mono Green Devotion. We thought it was dead, but the last couple of weeks it started putting up a few results, and this week it's back with a vengeance at 13 top 16s. Even after the Karn ban, it's back, and the reason it's starting so high is because the deck has a strong history of doing well, and especially into a metagame that has a lot of mid-range decks, Devotion will generally feast. Amalia moves down from A tier down to B tier this week with only 10 top 16s. Even though the deck is still very strong, adding in Devotion to the metagame does mean there's another creature combo deck that can cause problems, and it didn't quite hold up once it started getting targeted as much this week. Discard similarly moves from A to B tier. It did struggle a bit more with only 7 top 16s, and honestly I think the deck is going to continue to struggle. With Devotion coming into the metagame, there's even more decks that are able to survive with few cards in hand and still go over the top with whatever you draw. Additionally, there's going to be some more aggro decks that have a good ability to stop your interaction, and I think Discard is on its way down right now. Lastly, we have Gruul aggro, which normally is the best aggro deck in the format, but this week it struggled compared to Mono Red with only 7 top 16s. I think the deck is going to struggle as we move into a more combo focused metagame if Devotion continues, mainly due to being a little bit more powerful but also slower than Red, so it might be time to put the green away and go with Mono Red if you're looking to play an aggro deck in the format. Last up, we have the A tier, which has the usual suspects of Phoenix, Niv, and Vampires. Each put up top level results this week, with Phoenix putting up 25 top 16s and continuing to outpace the rest of the format. Niv put up 19 top 16s and continues to dominate the mid-range part of the format, but still I'm a little concerned with Devotion coming back as well as Lotus Field finding more success, that the combo elements of the format might be able to attack it and have it struggle moving forward. Last up, we have Vampires, which put up 16 top 16s this week, and while it's still well above the rest of the format, it is a little concerning since it's the lowest of the A tier, and with Devotion coming back, I'm a little bit worried since Rakdos midrange always struggled with Devotion. Vampires may be moving down to B tier in the near future if my concerns come to light. Well, that's all for me. Thanks for watching. Until next time.